your mic and you have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you so much, Chairman Sablon, for recognizing me and for putting together this really important hearing today on education for homeless and foster youth. According to research conducted by Poverty Solutions at the University of Michigan, research with which our witness, Ms. Herb Downward, is involved, 1 out of every 12 Michigan fifth graders experiences homelessness at some point during elementary school. So troubling. And as with so many of the major crises we experience in the United States, students experience homelessness more frequently when they're part of underserved populations, including rural students, students of color, students with disabilities, English language learners, LGBTQ plus students, and pregnant, parenting, or caregiving students. So Ms. Herb Downward, would you elaborate on the intersections among students experiencing homelessness and these populations that I've mentioned?
Definitely, and thank you for this question. So it is absolutely true that there are intersections and that many of the groups that you, or all of the groups that you've mentioned, experience particular disadvantages when it comes to homelessness. I already referenced that Black and Hispanic students are 1 in 7 are experiencing homelessness at some point before they graduate, as compared to 1 in 10 homeless students in Michigan. Nationally, we see LGBTQ students experiencing significantly higher rates of homelessness. In fact, it's 2.9 times the rate of their non-LGBTQ peers. I think when we look at these intersections, what we have to think about is what are the systems in place to actually serve these different populations? And are we actually making sure that the services are in place in a way that meets the needs? I think it's particularly true, you referenced that rural students face a disproportionate risk of homelessness too. And I think that's a really important point as well, because we tend to think homelessness is more of an urban issue. Historically, that has been the story that's been told. If you were to look at the map of Michigan, though, you would see that some of the highest rates are actually in some of the more rural counties of the state. A lot of that has to do with the definition of homelessness. Families love their children. I think we can, let's start with that. Families love their kids and they want to protect them. And that means that in places which do not have shelters, which are the majority of places in the United States, most places do not have shelters, families don't have any other option than to double up with another family. They do not have access to the services that exist. And we limit access to services in many ways because of these different definitions. And so going back to, thinking about what opportunities exist now, again, we can bridge some of these gaps. For families who are living doubled up, we have the opportunity to make them eligible for other funding streams through HUD. Right now, housing services, housing support services. Another thing that I think is important to think about is the expansion of the child tax credit. I realize that this is outside of the education committee right now, but when we're talking about poverty, homelessness, foster care, these are issues. Housing instability is an issue of poverty, and very deep poverty and instability. Families are just living on the edge.
All right, well, listen, I really agree with you. It's a super important point. And I also want to point out that the Department of Education's guidance for the American Rescue Plan funds dedicated to serving homeless students encourages states to partner with community-based organizations that specialize in serving these historically underserved populations. So I really hope that we see a lot of great programs there. But in the little time I have left, I've been listening to all this talk about schools being open and not. My own daughter has been, first they shut down her school, then she was in virtual, then she was in hybrid, then she was in virtual, then she was in, now she's fully back in school. But Dr. Lane, can you tell us what's going on in Virginia to reopen schools? Because I think people are working very hard on this.
Yeah, I'm actually, you're out of time, Mr. Levin. Could the answer be sent in, be